You can't write. You cannot write. Why can't I have one stream where nothing, like something doesn't go wrong? It's every single time. I was sat there apologizing for the tech difficulties, saying like, "Oh my god, right, this is winding me up. Like this is going to be a train wreck of a stream, isn't it?" Is that better? Can you hear me now? But I was there giving a big speech about how today's been a bit of a rough one. Tech hasn't been on my side. The computer's playing up. And it's not been as rough as the Eagles, who have obviously had to sideline Bryce Huff, who is going under wrist surgery. And instead, my computer decided to really just key in on that fact of it all going to shit and ruin my life further. So apologies for that. And to anyone watching this after it's gone live, you're probably not here anymore. And that might be for the best, going off of how the first 30 seconds have gone. But a shout to everyone that is in the stream and has survived the opening 3 minutes of absolute atrocity here. So Duck, Birdbrain, Greg, you boys all here ready to talk birds. Love to see it on a Wednesday evening. So bad news out of Philadelphia today, which has been rare to say over the last 5 weeks, that Bryce Huff is hitting IR for having surgery on his left wrist. Now, we all know why he's having the surgery, don't we? Yeah. If he did a little bit more of swim moves and a little less that, he might be... No, look, I would never insinuate that. But Bryce Huff to IR for surgery on his left wrist, something that's been ailing him for a couple of weeks now. His snaps have been down pretty consistently over the last few weeks, like the Cowboys and the Jags game specifically, like he barely saw the field, which isn't great. But it's weird because at the same time he was producing better, which is also ironic. Was in those games where he was producing better and playing less. It's almost like exactly what he did with the Jets, which is what got him paid, because he's not a 4-down defensive tackle, is he? We all know he is just put him in there, 3rd down, let him rip, take him back out. He's like a human Beyblade. So that was ironic. But Bryce Huff going out does provide the opportunity for Jalix Hunt to come in. Now, look, I understand he's not the biggest playmaker that there could possibly lose. It's not like they're losing AJ Brown. It's not like they're losing Jalen Carter, let's say, if we're going defensively. But he is still a key cog. Like, if you look back at the edge rushes at the minute, it's going to be a lot of pressure on Nolan Smith. It's a lot for Josh Sweat and BG, who have essentially become this 1-2 tandem of role players over the last few weeks or so. It is difficult. Like, I understand that Bryce Huff hasn't provided that much in terms of production, but I can guarantee that the plays he hasn't got home, that they're the ones also that Jalen Carter is eating on. They're the ones that Jordan Davis is standing out on. They're the ones the linebackers are standing out on. Like, he hasn't been the most productive player. We were expecting like Sack City and this non-stop range of production. That hasn't been there. But anytime you lose a starting caliber player, someone that has produced in recent weeks, someone that realistically he hasn't done it, but he can change the tide of a game because of that just sheer explosiveness. It sucks. So Bryce Huff going to IR is difficult. As for who steps up, again, everyone's going to look to Jalix Hunt, which is good for us because us sickos have been hot on the Jalix Hunt train for quite some time now. We watched the rookie tape when he came out of college. All of us got a little bit flustered and I think excited by the idea that this is someone that could be a very dynamic player for the Eagles. Isn't going to be limited to edge, isn't going to be limited to linebacker, can do a little bit of everything, can play horizontally extremely well, breaks extremely hard. The transition up to the NFL is a tough one, especially from a smaller school. Like, we all appreciate that. So I don't think anyone's expecting miracles. Having said that, if he's to take Bryce Huff's 5-10 snaps a game, which is basically, I think he had like 20 snaps or something against the Cowboys. If he gets that sort of workload, that's easy to kind of just ease him into things, get him up to speed and see how he fares. I would love to see a Jalix Hunt breakout game. I'm not expecting, again, a miracle, but 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss maybe instead, gets his hand in on a fumble, makes a big pass defense by getting a hand up, tracks back into coverage and makes a stop. Something like that. Just get him on the map, get him rolling in the right direction. But I think it's really going to mean a lot for his development because he hasn't seen a lot of the field this year, like at all. And as a player that was selected in the 3rd round, you need that development. Like, I know it's a kind of slanted example, but if you look at Cooper DeJean, if you look at Quinion Mitchell, if you look at the way they are playing currently, snaps matter. Like, Quinion Mitchell would not be playing like that if he was, on the bench and being dropped in this week. You wouldn't expect that. It's the time it takes for that confidence to build. It's the time it takes for just the familiarity, the comfort to set in, and you to do your job efficiently. That takes time for a rookie, especially when you're looking at defensive line. As we all know in Philadelphia, whether it's Vinny Curry, whether it's Brandon Graham, whether it's Derek Barnett, like we've had our fair share of edge rushers that have taken their time to get going, some more so than others. And Jalix Hunt isn't the same breed as those guys. He's going to be used a little bit differently, I think, especially under Vic Fangio. But I do think that there is a real chance here that he can eat into some of those snaps. Like, realistically, I think the defense next year should feature a base with, this is without drafting, without trades, without free agency, just if we're going off the Eagles roster currently, you can build a rotation of defensive ends, including Bryce Huff, Jalix Hunt, Josh Sweat, if you keep him around one more year. You could try Milton Williams out there. We know he's, lean enough to play in that like 5-tech and that outside position. We know he's got that in him. And obviously Nolan Smith, who we haven't mentioned, who should be playing a pretty pivotal role. Like, he's the guy that's going to get probably the biggest uptick, I think, from this absence. So in reality, like, this is the kind of era now. Like, I know Huff is part of that picture, but he's down, where you need to breed in those younger talents, like someone like Jalix Hunt, someone like Nolan Smith. You need them to start kicking on. You need them to be comfortable in what Vic Fangio expects, because in 2 years' time, even a year's time, when Brandon Graham's not here, when Josh Sweat might not be here, you need guys to lean on, and neither of them are there yet. Nolan Smith is getting there. I think we're seeing increasing levels of confidence from Nolan Smith. The production's spiking. You're seeing a real joy in his play, which just wasn't there the first year in Philadelphia. It was very much kind of shoulders down, head down, not really inviting the spotlight. And now the spotlight is drawn to him a little bit more. He's beginning to find that, I would say, aura is a bad way for analysing football, but you understand what I mean, of the same way he did when he was at Georgia, of just kind of thriving under the pressure rather than folding under it. And that does count for an awful lot. So I think that this is going to be a big week for those guys. The Rams do have, as we know, a potent offense. It's not exactly been the most blistering offense we've seen in the NFL this year, but Matt Stafford is still Matt Stafford. He's still going to be a nightmare if you're playing him in fantasy matchups. Cooper Kupp is still riding a pretty good streak. I think he's had multiple 100-yard games and a couple touchdowns over the last few weeks. Kyren Williams has been very solid. Not Saquon Barkley level, but he's going to hurt you. And you've got a fairly flexible playbook that is going to move around quite a lot and cause some problems. So this is a game where really you could have done with Bryce Huff, who at least has a familiarity. Like, now you take him out, it's very much all in on Nolan Smith, who we're still waiting to see what's out there. It's still all in on a guy like Jalix Hunt, who hasn't really seen the field, especially not to this level, against an offense that is going to throw everything possible. Like, I know the Rams aren't the Rams of 2020 or 2021 or whatever, but it's still a Sean McVay offense. And what Sean McVay does better than a lot of people, in the same way Belichick did, but with a little bit more flair, I would say, it is just, instead of seeing a weakness and taking away, it's like seeing a weakness and just exposing it for all it's worth in as many different ways as you physically can. And when you've got guys that can move around the line of scrimmage so fluently, the linebackers are going to need a field day, especially with that absence of an extra edge rusher down there. And you're going to have to just hope for the best and hope they can lock in and get it done. But I've got faith they'll be fine. I really do. As much as the loss of Bryce Huff hurts, it's come at a good time, really. If there was ever a time to lose him for a few weeks, it's when the team is already riding a 6-game win streak, when you're sat atop the NFC East, you've beaten the Commanders, you've beaten the Cowboys, you've beaten the Giants. You've done the job. You're in the playoff hunt now. You're at the top of your division. You can afford a setback. It's not like their backs against the wall. They lost to the Commanders. They lost to the Cowboys. They're really struggling. The pressure is building. This chamber of just internal combustion is only heating up and getting worse. That's not there. The Eagles can afford to be a bit flexible, maybe try and reel in some new talent again, like a Jalix Hunt, and get around this loss the best they can. And I think that's probably the one good thing to come out of this, is that it's not like this loss has come when they're on a 3-game losing streak and everything is in the mud. We'll get to a few of your comments. How did you get carpal tunnel syndrome and your eye strain? I tell you what, Doug, I saw your comment the other day, and I need to bring it up because I can't remember which video it was on, because PSN is just insistent now on uploading all the time. So I need to find this comment and read it out because it genuinely made me laugh. And it's really winding me up that I can't remember the video it was on. But it was about my hair. He might be able to even let me know, to be honest, because obviously Duck made the comment. But it was a little comment about my hair and what I look like now. Where's it to? There it is. I now look like Ewan McGregor from Train Spotting. ... While he's drugged out. Now, I will take a young Ewan McGregor. I think that's a pretty good, compliment, a compromise here after the Sirianni haircut. I've almost been tempted to shave it back down because it's already getting a bit out of hand now. And this is the thing, which look at that. That's like a Phil Foden-esque level fringe and not really what I'm here for. I don't have the forehead game in me for that. So we might have to shave it down to recent Sirianni growth levels, like the OG, like bring it down to a 1. Let's just ride out this bald thing because it seems to be working. Hit the like button, says Duck. Let's go core. Look, we've got the core boys in. If you haven't liked the stream yet, it does help an awful lot. A few of you guys, as I said, may have noticed that our channel recently has noticed a bit of an uptick in terms of content, in the way it's packaged. I know, obviously, Bird Brain putting out the title today, but it's working. All right, the channel is growing again. We're noticing momentum. We're doing the right things. And it's, we're trying. So any any subscription that you guys have where you just want to be a part of our team and talk birds with us, then, it's massively appreciated. We love to have you on. Joe Santo, good afternoon to you, my good friend. I hope you are all well. Welcome to the show. McVay does for offense that Belichick does for defense, or did for defense. Completely agree with that. And Jarrell says they're going to have to draft and bring in defensive ends in free agency. I've not actually looked at where the talent pool is for this year's NFL draft. Like, I've been very slow. I always am. Like, I start draft stuff like March, if I'm on, like February, March time. Like, as soon as the Super Bowl's done, then it kind of gradually shifts over when the Combine and the Senior Bowl and that sort of thing. But until then, like, I don't have it in me to keep up with 1 billion college football games every week. It's very overwhelming, especially when I have a dog in the fight, other than Texas A&M, because Enea Smith, and a few other players that have come out of there that I've randomly grown an affinity to. So I'm going to need to dial back in some draft coverage, but hopefully it's quite a deep pool and there's a couple of players the Eagles can add. But I think the difficulty is with that, it's very rare that you see young edge rushers come out of the gate swinging. Like, there aren't many Jared Verse level cases in the world where you can come out, notch a few sacks in your rookie year, and be instantly productive. Like, again, we mentioned it a few minutes ago, but it's so easily overlooked when you look at guys like Derek Barnett, who took 4 years to learn how to spin in a circle. When you look at Vinny Curry, took a while. It took a few years. It took a contract extension to get the Super Bowl, and it was all right after that. You go back a bit further, obviously there's Brandon Graham, there's the Fireman. Like, there's all sorts of hopes and woes here when it comes to the defensive end position, especially in Philadelphia. But it's just rare to find good ones, and it's why they end up being so, I would say, volatile. Like, when you get someone like a JJ Watt or a TJ Watt, for instance, who can just stay in the league and stay productive and stay getting these like 8, 9, 10, 11 sack seasons. So Son Reddick's a great example of that. They're a diamond that you cannot find them. That they're so rare. And I mean, the Hassan Reddick saga is gut-wrenchingly upsetting the way it all panned out, but you just don't get many that can stay there. You'll get flash in the pans, Bryce Huff, that can do 10 sacks in a limited role, but when you're expected to do it for a new team, game in, game out, drive in, drive out, it's a very different beast. So, I mean, it'll be great. Depending on where the Eagles are picking, like, I think we can assume it'll be bottom 25, so you're looking at the lower echelons of the first round, which isn't bad considering where they got DeJean and where they got Mitchell this year. Like, that fringe first, second round, if they can find some value. They just need the class to be deep. And if it's not deep, you've got to look at free agency. Or, I mean, like, I'm amazed they didn't go deadline hunting with guys like Jadeveon Clowney, for instance, were on the block. I know it wasn't the best, fit in the world because he's getting a bit older and he's nowhere near the player he was. But you have to wonder, would that have, but especially now with Huff down, would it have at least provided some reassurance there? Can't wait for the exciting Whites matchup of Cooper Kupp and Cooper DeJean. The Cooper match as well. Let's not forget, this is the Cooper showdown. And of course, both in the slot. It's one of them you're going to want to revisit on film, isn't it? Like, that's the matchup I think your eyes are going to be glued to this weekend. Kupp has been brilliant for so long now, and I'm excited by Cooper DeJean. I think he is really taken to Philadelphia. Like, I think that's the other thing that we forget about is that transitioning to the NFL is one thing. Transitioning to Philadelphia specifically is something entirely different because of the weight of expectation. You look at Jalen Reagor. All right. Like the city puts a ton of pressure on you. Like you have to thrive and be comfortable with the results. And when they're not going your way, that the fans are going to let you hear it. And not everyone is built for that. Cooper DeJean has just dropped into Philadelphia, rocking the exciting Whites t-shirt, taking it as a term of endearment, like really just leaned into this whole that he's like, a bit of a rare breed as a white safety. And more than anything, just I think solidified himself with his play. Like when he first got that initial few snaps coming back from injury, it didn't take long for him to settle in. It wasn't like it took him a few weeks and there were missed tackles and PIs and it was scrappy and he's missed assignments and guys are blowing by him. He was very comfortable very early on. And I think that when you partner it with Quignon and those guys can lean off each other, it's just been really cool to see. Like you don't see many guys like come into a season, especially the way Cooper did off the back of an injury, having missed all of training camp outside of one preseason game and I think 1 week at the end, and just make an impact and be comfortable and be happy in the slot and cover whoever is in front of him. It's great to see. And I think that as much as the Cooper Cup matchup is going to be a very different beast, a very different test, I think he's 100% in line to give it his best shot and to surprise a few people against one of the best slot wideouts of the last decade or so. Little G is in. I'm a big Eagles fan. 2024 season better. Eagles beat the Rams 28-14. Big bold prediction there from Little G. And he is championing for some more products there from Georgia and Alabama. Birdbrain says the edge class is good, which is reassuring to me. Reddick is so talented, says Duck, and he allegedly locker room cancelled his way out of Philly. Going to the Jets seems just the right place for him now. And on that note, do I think Philly brings Joe Douglas back? No, I don't. I like Joe Douglas. I think he was good during his time in Philadelphia. But when you've had that sniff of a GM role, like you're not going to want to go back down to being assistant to the regional manager, I think, at that point. I think Douglas has been with the Jets for multiple years. He has his strategy, and like it or not, whether it's worked or not, I guess it depends, doesn't it? Because you can look at the players they actually get and the players they draft and say, this is it. Every year the Jets seem to have a fairly decent draft, and then every year they're awful because they don't have the systems and the coaches in place to get the most out of those players. So I think you could, if you're an NFL exec looking at someone like Joe Douglas for a GM role, you can do worse. Again, that Ozzie Newsome school of scouting is unparalleled, I think, in the way it's carried through. And Douglas is a fine example of that. And I think he won't struggle to find a GM job somewhere. So the other issue the Eagles have is that all they seem to do is get front office staff that get poached by everyone else, then get new front office staff, and then they get poached by everyone else. So bringing one back in a role after he's kind of been away, it feels a bit iffy. Like they've moved on from that. It's a different era now, a different way of talent evaluation. I think Howie Roseman has kind of really come into his own over the last 2 years, I would say, in terms of the actual hit rate on his draft picks and the instant hit rate. Like long-term hit rate is different, but in terms of instant guys coming in and making an impact, this has been some of his best work, like without a shadow of a doubt. So I don't think he's going to want someone that not necessarily would get in his way because of the role being reduced slightly, but he's got the experience. Like, have you ever had a manager at work that then, leaves and comes back as I don't know, I'm just thinking of my previous experience, but as like a customer assistant or something, and then they're just constantly weaning in and constantly telling you how you should be doing things and how they did things. Like, I don't think that would be overly productive for them. So, yeah, I can't see it happening. The good news, though, and we'll get to Duck's comment about Quignon Mitchell in a bit because I'm all for a lengthy discussion on how good that young man has been. But I think one thing we haven't mentioned today is the return of Britton Covey. So that is the big man with the tick in the thumbnail. He's coming off IR, so that's a boost to a special teams unit that, look, is he needed with Cooper DeJean there? I think my voice can go much higher than that, so I apologize for the breaking decibels, but is he needed? Like, I think that Britton Covey coming back is big. We know the speed he brings, and he can break out these, lengthy returns of 30, 40 yards, but it's not like when he went down, all of a sudden everything's in disarray and the Eagles can't return a football. I think there was a lot more hope and excitement to see Cooper DeJean back there working out some wizardry. And now he continues to thrive in that area as well. That it's kind of negated the loss. So it's nice that Britton Covey's coming back. Obviously, he was one of the best punt returners of, was it 23? Was it last year or the year before? I think it was last year. And while there are different responsibilities, yeah, I think Josh Williams there makes a good point. Welcome to the chat, Josh. I think that's your first comment in it. You are given an official hug. You're one of the boys now. Welcome to the show. Yes, you need it. I don't want Cooper hurt. Yeah, if I'm honest, I don't think much would genuinely scare me as much as seeing Cooper DeJean go down on a return. And as much as they've changed the returns around and the structure's different, that's a pain in the ass. And I'm saving that rant for another day when the season's done. But yeah, nothing would genuinely put my heart in my throat more. Like, if there was one player to go outside of Saquon Barkley, where, you know, if he goes down, it's like, fuck, you're livid and it's gut wrenching. Like, there'll be something I think extra sad with Cooper DeJean because he's a rookie, because of the way he's been playing, because he had an injury earlier in the year that prevented him even getting through training camp. So I'm going to stop talking about it because I don't want to jinx it, and that's not what this stream is for. And if it happens, you're going to be coming straight back in and trying to sue me for some kind of like horrible foreshadowing, and I'm not here for that legal action. So, yeah, I agree. I'll leave it there. I agree, and I think it is good that Covey's coming back. But it has been fun seeing DeJean back there doing what he did so well at Iowa. I'm just going to take a drink a sec. Excuse me. My voice is getting a bit... It sounds a bit too masculine today, my voice. I'm not used to it sounding so deep. I think I'm getting a bit poorly. But we'll get to Duck's comment now. I wish we had like a little... We should get a little ad reel, shouldn't we? Don't even get a sponsor. I might just like run my favorite commercial over the top of the screen or something. Just give you like... Every kiss begins with Kate, and just put that on. You can just watch that. They can have free advertising. They're welcome, but it's better than watching me drink with ASMR content. So I just want to get Gerald's comment. I have a theory Joe Douglas is a human injury bug. No disrespect, just keeps happening where he goes. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's what, 3 teams now, I guess, if you can include Baltimore, where stuff's gone a little bit away from as soon as he's in power. So don't know what he's putting in the water over there, but it's certainly not good. We'll get to Duck's comment here, how Q might now definitely get Rookie of the Year, or not, might get Defensive Rookie of the Year, or definitely. Because the Kiwis are too afraid to throw his way, so he doesn't have the tape. I mean, and this is the thing, and if I'm honest, this is what is going to show how the award is judged, because we all know it's done on a panel, and we all know the panel is just a bunch of 65-year-old white men. Some are journalists, some haven't been journalists in 10 years, that just don't really, it's just like, it's like just a polling station. You just get like 4 options and they go, yeah, that one. And I don't think there's ever much more that goes into it. They just get sent. And I don't know. I don't want to slander it because I'm not familiar with the process, but it certainly feels that way with all the awards. Not even just Rookie of the Year, but it's so hard for a corner to win Rookie of the Year for those exact reasons that you mentioned. Because if it goes off production, if you're looking for the Rookie of the Year, I feel like it's because you need something to sell on TV. Right? As in, you need to say how amazing this guy is and look at all this stuff he's done. And if you go to Jared Verse and you say he's got this many sacks and this many TFL and the pressure rate's up here and blah, 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 and it sounds like really exciting. And if Quinion Mitchell's is... Well, they're not throwing his way. So, like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, I think there's a real difficulty there because they can't present that in a way that is enticing and is engaging to fans of, whoa, 6 sacks, big bang, boom. I feel like that because that's not taken into account, it makes it incredibly difficult. I mean, the last rookie to win, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the last rookie corner to win that award was Sauce Gardner, I think. So which tells you how rare it is, because obviously Sauce Gardner's career has gone like that since, and you know, it's been a very different era. So it doesn't happen a lot, I think, because of that reason. But let's go look at... Hang on, while I'm saying this, social experiment, what I'm going to do is look at Sauce Gardner's PFR and see what his stats were during his rookie year. So we can get a rough, you know, grading bar, if you will, as to what we would need to see from our prized rookie. So we go game logs 2022. And let's have a look. No, I just want stats. That's the wrong one. I need splits. 2022. Let's try that. Excuse me. I'm still... This is not also what I wanted. None of this is what I wanted. Why is it so difficult to find? I guess it'll be on the career page, won't it? For crying out loud. Yeah, I could have just scrolled down. Right, 2022. So he had 20 passes defensed, 3 tackles for a loss, a QB hit, only 2 picks. But that one there, the 20 passes defensed, all right, like that's probably the big. But you can say that as a stat, and it sounds outstanding. Like that sounds ridiculous. So if we go to Quinyon Mitchell, who is there, and we look at his rookie year at the minute, he's on 8. I'll tell you what, he ain't far away. What, he needs about... Oh, I say he's not far away. There's, 7 games left? 1 a time gets him up near it. Like, 50? Let's say, if we average it out, let's say he ends up on, 14 passes defense. Let's say he gets his first interception and 1 tackle for a loss. So I think if it gets to a point where he's genuinely in the running for an award, I wouldn't be surprised if Vic Fangio just starts drawing him up on blitz plays and stuff to just get him involved a bit more and see if they can shit out something for him. So, but look at that, he is a little bit off. My camera's gone, so that's fantastic. Is it back? There we go. Apologies, gents. That was not part of the game plan. I told you my computer is very temperamental today. Rookie of the Year is from a room press, scouts, and players to vote. Oh, okay. Ex-players to vote. Fair enough. But either way, I still think the reasoning is very much the same. 8 passes defensed in 10 games. I mean, so that's all he's got at the minute. If we go 7, let's say that's going to be about 6.5. We can't really have half a pass defense. Like he goes to defend it and goes, nah. But so let's say he ends up on 14, 15. It's doable. It is doable. But I think that until he gets that first interception, that's the thing they need. I think he has baked the whole cake. And I guarantee, if you look back at the stats from Sauce Gardner's rookie year, you look at Quinyon's rookie year, and I'm not talking about the actual the tackles and the picks and stuff, but the coverage rate or the completion percentage when the ball is thrown your way and that sort of thing. I guarantee if you were to look at that for both of them, they wouldn't be far apart. If not, Quinyon might even be a little bit higher. I could do that as an experiment, but unfortunately it would take me half an hour to find what I'm looking for, and I don't want to bore you on stream. So if anyone has those numbers, feel free to put them in. But yeah, as Duck says, defensive rookie of the year tends to go to defensive line and linebackers. You get a ton of sacks because it's all just, it's the same with receivers to a point where it touchdowns matter a lot more, I think. And it's the big thing. It's even if you, I don't know, for a receiver, someone like Justin Jefferson to win MVP would take a monumental effort. You can be the best receiver in the game by a mile, but they have to grade that as more valuable than 31 other quarterbacks. And it will take so much for that to happen. Christian McCaffrey has it a bit easier because he can kind of contribute in 2 categories. Obviously, he can hurt you out of the backfield. He can do it through the air. But you just don't see it. And there really should be a reform of how things are worked out and presented, because it needs to. It's the game's too advanced. There are too many advanced metrics. There are too many new analytical ways of grading players, of evaluating performances, where you can't just take a blanket over an ESPN box score and say that guy is better than these lot because he had 6 sacks and they had 3. When the guy that had 3 sacks could have been a completely different scheme with completely different responsibilities, but was more valuable to his team. So yeah, I don't know. I will stop ranting because I feel like I'm doing this a lot now when it comes to the Rookie of the Year voting, because I already know how it's going to end and I'm not a fan of it. Crazy thing is Anderson won it with 7 sacks, 0.5 more than Carter, and yet Kobe Turner had more sacks. Oh, really? Damn, that's interesting. Look, the whole thing's rigged. The whole thing, get it gone. Let us do it. I say, let the stream chat of the Outside Insider, let us do it. All right, we'll sit down, we'll pick the players, and we'll be a little bit fairer than, it's not hard, I don't think, but, we could get that done. Anyway, on to the Rams game specifically. Is there anything you guys would like to talk about regarding that? I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup. My first instinct looking at everything today, I had to write the betting preview for PSN and stuff. The total is way too high for the betting degens among you. 50.5 points is too high when you've got Philadelphia's 2nd-ranked pass defense, their 7th-ranked run defense, and a Los Angeles Rams offense that is all right. It's not the demolition crew that it used to be. It's not tearing through opponents for fun. The Patriots did a really, really good job of sticking around and making life difficult. It's not the offense that once was under Sean McVay. They're missing a lot of those key pieces, especially along the offensive line, in comparison to those former years. So, yeah, I think 50 is too high. I think the Eagles still struggle to score early on, and that is what it is. It's fine. But when you factor that in with a Rams offense that struggles to be consistent, I think that the total is too high. So that's my first instinct with this game. Secondly, I think Matt Stafford could be in for a struggle. I know he's typically had a habit of making lives miserable for Philadelphia Eagles fans, but again, it's a very different defense now. You're talking about the second best pass defense in the NFL, seventh best run, and a Rams offense that if Kyren Williams can't get going, which he may struggle to because, again, different challenge now. Like the Rams aren't still fully there, I think, with their wide receiver group at the minute. That's kind of apparent in terms of what they're trying to do. Like they're just a little bit too much, I think, in the way of. It feels like almost the Eagles in the first few weeks of the season, but like every game, where like there'll be spurts of like really good, really solid air it outplay to Cup or whoever, and then there are just like strange misfires or decisions, and it's a little bit disjointed. And Kyren Williams will break out for 120 yards one game, and he gets 3 carries the next series or something, and it's like nothing seems like overly sustainable with the Rams at the minute. I think part of that is on the fact that they are down a few bodies. Part of it is just on the roster is very different. And I think their ridiculous aggressiveness to haul in a ton of free agents and trade people and get rid of all these picks. And like it worked for about 2 months. Like as soon as they got like the likes of Jalen Ramsey and stuff, like it was 2 months where the Rams were like insane. And they were this dynasty level team that were going to rip through and win 4 Super Bowls in a row. And then the wheels fell off a bit. And then they can't reinforce the weak spots with draft picks because they've traded them all. And now they're in the mud. And now they're struggling. So what they've got is what they've got. And what they're doing is working with that and trying to, I guess, maximize it. But yeah, I don't see much fear when it comes to the Rams in terms of like me viewing this game. Like I'm not overly scared of the Rams. I was far more scared of the Commanders than I am of the Los Angeles Rams. It's also on the road. As we know, SoFi Stadium is basically Lincoln Financial Field 2.0 because Los Angeles has no fans because it is the most transient market ever. I don't know why it exists. Actually, I'd say that. The stadium fills with away fans all the time, so it's probably tourist money keeping them. Yeah, never mind. Anyway, incredibly transient. Like, there's no risk of like a intimidating home atmosphere. It's not like they're going to Denver or Seattle or Kansas City or Buffalo. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not that deep. We're talking about a team that just isn't there, I don't think. Like, the Rams have fallen off. The stadium isn't hostile. The Eagles are red hot. They're riding 6 in a row. They're near, and they can secure the division, I think, if they can really eke out to a 2-game lead here with that further fixture to play against Washington on the road. Like, there's a real chance they can just put their foot down and take a step ahead, I think, now and just leave the rest behind them. So we shall see. But I don't fear the Rams. I'm not scared of Matt Stafford. I'm not scared of Cooper Kupp. I'm not scared of Kyren Williams. I'm not scared of a weak secondary that has been leaking deep yards for a long time now. And I think the Eagles will be fine. And that's kind of my my analysis on this game up to this point. Duck says, I'm more afraid of the Ravens and Steelers than the Rams, but we have to travel to the West Coast game and they're very talented. Yeah, I mean, the Ravens specifically, the Ravens should be a Super Bowl team. Like, they should have been for the last 5 years, and they can never seem to get it together. But, like, regular season Ravens and, like, postseason Ravens are, like, the Eagles from last week and the Eagles that got blown out by the Bucs. Like, it's so bizarre, like, the fact that team can just consistently miss the mark with all the pieces they have. But, yeah, I would agree. I think the Steelers worry me a bit because they feel like a momentum team right now. Like, we know the defense is insane. We know TJ Watt has been ripping through anyone that stands in his way. And we also know that Russell Wilson is caught on a second life, which no one really expected. You know, when Justin Fields was running that offense, it looked okay. It looked like it could work. You've still got George Pickens being a nuisance. You've still got Najee Harris. You've still got Freiermuth. Like, it's a good offense. And then Russell Wilson steps in and everyone's a bit uneasy and he just starts flying. He just starts like dealing like he's in his Seattle days, which is great to see from a neutral perspective, but it does make them dangerous. However, I do think because of that, we haven't seen them yet in adversity with Russell Wilson. I don't think, like, outside, obviously, you know, the first bit, but like since his recent drop into the lineup. I don't think we've seen anything where we can go, all right, they're down by 20. They're down by 20 at halftime. What can they do? We've not seen it. Wilson's thrown 2 picks. They've let a team back into the game. Can they close it out? Like we're just missing that chapter of this Steelers team. They are a Mike Tomlin team still. They are still incredibly well buttoned up. They don't commit many errors, and they're vicious on defense. But I do wonder if you start to rattle Russell Wilson, how long it will take for those old rusty cogs to start loosening a little bit instead of being as tightened and lubed up as they are now. So Ravens, I'm naturally scared of because I just think that. But having said that, again, they have dropped some stinkers this year. Like the Ravens should have been walking through this schedule, and they are really letting down some big games, and it has thrown their division like wide open. If they're not hot and they can't finish things out, they're going to be in for a real shock when it comes to those final few weeks. And the Steelers, like, I'm scared to a point, but not overly of them just yet. The Rams are just the next test for our team, just like the Commies were a test. The Rams are the next one, so we have to step up to. That's the best way to look at it. Just game by game, you beat who's in front of you. They do bring a unique set of challenges, and it's probably going to end up being a very tense game for a while because the Rams can and have, a history of just churning up yards for fun. And if this Eagles defense gets rattled early on, if they start leaking yards, if people are missing assignments, you're going to start wondering, okay, like they've got to find a flaw here. They've got to put the foot down and start pushing back. You've got to look for those things. Like every challenge now for this team is a good one. There's no such thing as a game, I think, now where, regardless of the opposition, whether they're the Giants, whether it's the Cowboys, who are just absolutely defunct and in a total state of disarray, or it's a team that's pushing for the playoffs with the Rams just behind the Cardinals in the West, or whether it's a team at the head of the playoff chase, whether it's the Commanders or the Ravens or the Steelers. At the end of the day, each team is going to bring a different challenge. And I think this Eagles team specifically that has lacked an identity for the first half of the year, that limped into the bye week after getting a spanking from the Bucs, has started to find one. They're beginning to fire now, and they just need to see that belief grow. Like, they've got to keep going. Like, they can't play down to an opponent. They can't take it easy. They can't allow the same sloppy starts to rue the day. They've got to be hot and treat this game like they would any other. Like, it sounds really simple, and everyone says it every single week. But for a team that's on a 6-game win streak, complacency is always a risk. It is always a risk. And the Chiefs were very lucky 2 weeks ago not to have their, unbeaten season ended. They did, obviously, this past weekend with Buffalo. But you could see, like, that wasn't a buttoned-up game. That wasn't a good team that played. They were better against the Bills, not good enough. The Eagles need to be better than that. It's that simple. It sounds really, obvious, but I also think it's super valid that the Eagles just have to be the team they are, which is, top to bottom, better than the Rams. The Rams might have a better position with Cooper Kupp in the slot. Doesn't mean they're a better team. They might have an efficient running back. He's not Saquon Barkley. They don't have the same offensive line. Their defensive line isn't what it was. The secondary's banged up. The linebackers are okay. This is an easily winnable game for the Eagles, and I think that they should have no problem dispersing of them. It's just whether or not they can. So we will absolutely find out. But on that note, I am going to end this stream a little bit early, which I know is controversial and rare from me, just because it has been an insanely long day. I had to go to a house viewing. There's been a ton of stuff with work. I also think I genuinely low-key might have food poisoning or something. Like, my girlfriend didn't feel well like all day and was like white as a sheet and a bit icky. And I not feeling great either. Regular toilet, it's not pretty. So not feeling great. I think we've got through enough here with the Bryce Huff stuff and the Rams preview and things like that. But I will be back on Friday for the main preview of the Rams. We'll do a bit more of a statistical insight into the team, talk about potential matchups, and obviously concerns, areas of confidence, and all of that good stuff ahead of the Sunday night football matchup, which means I'll be up till 7 a.m. again. Woo! Hooray for delusions and sleep deprivation. Can't wait. But yeah, I appreciate you guys hanging out. Thank you so much for taking your time with me and putting up through the first 5 minutes of bollocks as well, because that also wasn't very pretty. Take care of yourself, and I'll order some soup. Do you know what? Soup sounds bloody lovely right now. It really, really does. So I will definitely take you up on that offer, Duck. Thank you very, very much. Guys, on your way out of the theatre, if you could leave your like in the bucket, if you could subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, that will be absolutely tremendous. I will see you on Friday for another edition of the Outside Insider. We might have something tomorrow night as well. I'm not sure. And Birdbrain, you already know there will be plenty of tea. Oh, you don't have to ask me twice. You have not got to ask me twice. I'm like making it rain with tea bags over here. It's tremendous. So, yeah. Oh, Darlene, thank you so much. That's super kind of you. Look at that. See, we're growing. I told you. Look, the thumbnails, we're working. Me and Brian are working. We're bringing it up. Darlene, welcome to the family. You are always welcome here. Love to have you in the chat talking birds with us. I will see Darlene, Birdbrain, Duck. I'm trying to scroll through. It's not enough. Jarrell, Josh, J-Fizz, Little G, everyone, Greg. I'm going to forget Greg. Damn it, he's going to kill me. Guys, I will see you all on Friday for another edition of the Outside Insider. Take care. Go Birds. See you soon.